And I remember one great story about a priest whose name I can't recall. He went down to El Paso, Texas, very early in his priesthood, to get the people down there a bit more acclimated to their Catholic faith. There was a lot of Mexicans down there, and most Mexican people are Catholic. And so he would work with them and all. And one of the things that they all had a burden for was across the river in Juarez, Mexico. All of them, some of them actually lived there, but all of them were very, very poor over there in Juarez, and they would garbage pick, and that was how they found pitiful looking things to sell at stores, and sometimes they would eat the leftover, the thrown out food over there. And this was a heavy burden, not only to Father, but to his flock, because he's saying to them, you know, how do we show our God's love? And across the river are all these people starving. So one holiday, I don't remember if it was Christmas, New Year's, what it was, they decided that they would gather food. They would each fix their own meal, have their own celebration, and then they would bring anything that was left over plus anything they could get together. And they would bring it all over across the river. So they did, and I remember I interviewed Father on the phone, and then I also talked to some of the people that were there that day, and I talked to the man who was in charge of the ham. They had one ham, and he was so proud. It was his chore, but you know, to cut it, and he said, I cut it, señorita, in very thin slices because I knew that we would not have enough to go around. That was the problem. They carried everything across the Rio Grande, and on the other side they set up tables right on the dump. And all these people started coming and looking, and the scents must have been marvelous, just to smell bread baking. And people started coming, and they were the guests of the church, so they sat down. And, you know, I wouldn't have been surprised if someone told me they washed the feet of these people, but by their attitude, I'm sure they did in spirit. And they set everything out and said, just go to it, come through the line, take anything you want. Eat as much as you want. Now, I said to Father, you knew that you didn't have enough to feed more than maybe 50 to 100. He said, yes, but it's God's food, and God will do with it what he wills. So by a great act of faith, that's exactly what happened. And the man that was cutting that ham cut the ham for almost 3 hours, he told me. The ham never diminished. I said, did it have a bone in it? I'd like to master that trick with my own family. But he said, yes, it had a bone, of course. And he just kept cutting around the bone. And people who had made the tamales, 2 ladies told me they had a huge bowl of tamales. And they said they would take one at a time. They were warm, and pass them out. And they said, we never got to the bottom of the tamales. As a matter of fact, they brought some of those back across the river and gave them to some of their own people.